Hello, my name is Dustin Kreitz, and I am the Interfaith Coordinator for Charlotte Pride. First of all, I would like to say thank you and welcome for joining us today for our 2020 Charlotte Pride Interfaith service. It has been a tremendous pleasure for me to serve Charlotte Pride as its Interfaith Coordinator this year. Being a part of this team has been especially important for me. I have only been out for a couple of years, and 2019 was the first Pride that I had ever attended. It was such a spiritual experience for me because it was the first time in my life I could be somewhere where I fit in and I could be myself. I felt welcomed and I felt loved, both by the people there and by God. I knew then that I had to be involved in the process to make this possible for anyone else who is like me, always a member of a church, but never a part of a community. So if you are out there watching this today, or at some point in the future, I want you to know 4 very particularly important things. Number 1, I love you. And number 2, we love you. Number 3, God loves you. And number 4, you are welcome here, always. As we continue to make our way through this year, we have had to adapt in the same way that many of you have, by learning new skills in order to do almost everything in the hopes of keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe. That is why we are coming to you virtually this year. But trust me, we would much rather be doing this in person. We, as a planet full of amazing humans, have faced unprecedented challenges throughout this year. And I do not have any doubt that there will be more challenges in the months and years to come. From the COVID-19 pandemic to civil unrest due to absolutely unnecessary police brutality, one thing has been made abundantly clear: humanity will rise. And that is our theme for today's service: rise. Reconciliation involves spiritual evolution. It is time for us to rise up and show the rest of the world that we have evolved into people that are better and more important than racism or discrimination, or any one political party, or any number of petty issues that try to divide us from our rightful place amongst humanity. You are going to hear from a few of our community's faith leaders tonight on different aspects of this topic. In addition, I would like to invite all of you to listen and participate in an upcoming virtual dialogue series called Erasing Racism, where we will discuss the issue of racial reconciliation and what we as the interfaith community can do to help facilitate lasting healing change in places that have been broken for hundreds of years. Lastly, let me say this. Our interfaith team goal this year and next is to establish new relationships in places where there were none before, as well as strengthen the relationships that already existed. I assure you, our resolve to create a community of inclusion, empowerment, and visibility has never been stronger. And just like the year we are living in, our vision of the future is 2020. And that is because of you. The strength and support we continue to receive from our various faith communities is the heartbeat of our cause. And for that, I say thank you. Please enjoy tonight's service.
My name is the Reverend Clifford Matthews Jr. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the proud pastor of the St. Luke Missionary Baptist Church located at 1600 Norris Avenue, Charlotte, North Carolina. We are a church affiliated with the American Baptist Churches USA, and we are a church that's proud to say that we love all God's children. This is a church for everybody. Who you are, who you love, makes no difference to God, and it does not make a difference to us. We invite you to join us, if you can, for one of our worship services via Facebook or YouTube. And when everything is over and the pandemic is gone away, when that happens, we want you to join us one Sunday and worship with us. We are proud to be a church deeply rooted in the African American religious experience, and proud to say that here we are proud to embrace the fact that our God is a great big God of love, acceptance, and embrace. God loves you, and so do I. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. My name is Clifford Matthews, and I am the proud pastor of the St. Luke Missionary Baptist Church, located here in Charlotte, North Carolina. St. Luke has been a church faithful to its call and mandate for over 70 years now. And I'm proud to have been here at St. Luke now for 20 years. We are a proud member of our community, a proud member of the American Baptist Churches USA. I want to welcome you to our sanctuary, to this moment. And I want to thank the Pride Interfaith Committee for allowing us to participate today. Thank you so much for your presence, and I hope that something that is said or done might help us all as it comes to becoming all that God will have us to be. So I want to first of all honor and recognize that this year, the Pride Interfaith Committee has lifted as its theme, reconciliation. They have lifted as that theme of reconciliation the context of the world in which we live. All of us have been impacted in some way by the global pandemic of COVID-19. In fact, the reason why we're not gathered here at the church today is because of the restrictions in place for safety because of COVID. But in the midst of COVID-19, we have witnessed, we have bore witness to the fact that systemic racism and oppression has not gone away. We have watched a brother jogging who was lynched. We have watched a sister who was sleeping, who was shot and killed. And we have watched a brother crying for his mama, saying that he could not breathe, take his last breath under the knee and under the pavement of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're living in difficult times, times in which the leader of our country seems to care more about making sure that monuments and statues to persons who did not affirm the worth and value of people of color, they are more important. They cannot be touched, while literally hundreds of thousands of persons are leaving here before this is over because of the fact that instead of giving us a national response, our country seems to be falling down on the job. In that context, we come. And we come with this hope that somehow something that is done throughout this interfaith pride worship service might bring about reconciliation. That there may be a great coming together, that somehow something that is said will lift us to a place where we indeed desire reconciliation. I want to honor that theme today. I want to say it is a noble and a great theme to have. And as I reflected upon that theme from my context as an African-American pastor in the Black Baptist Church tradition, I was led to a story that many of us know as the prodigal son. And that story found in the Christian Bible, in the Gospel of Luke, the 15th chapter, we find we're given a story concerning a young brother who goes to his parent and says, "Give me what is mine, my inheritance." And having his inheritance in his possession, the young brother goes out on a journey to a far country. He is rich enough to have access, but not wise enough to know what to do with it. There he goes now to a far country, and it was as if people saw him coming because he spent his time in desolate living. There he was now, out there having spent all he had when a famine hit the country, and he became so hungry that he hired himself out to a pig farmer. And having done that, he craved the food that the pigs were eating. While he was there in the pig pen, he had an existential moment. He had a moment that changed the trajectory of the story. He had a moment that made reconciliation a possibility. He had a moment that all of us need to have if reconciliation is going to be realized both within this community and the broader context of this country and this world. We are told that down in the pig pen, this brother came to himself. He came to himself, and by coming to himself, he was able to get up from the pig pen, to return back to a father, a parent, a mother, someone who loved him. But this time, when he came back, having been out into a far country, he came back now, not asking so much for special treatment, but asking simply to belong. This brother comes back. He experiences reconciliation, and the reconciliation gives this story a life outside of the Bible, so that even persons who do not affirm our faith or the Christian faith know this story, because it speaks to our deepest desire. We desire reconciliation, but real reconciliation is never an easy task. Real reconciliation rarely begins with someone else. Reconciliation, the desire that we have to come together, to be together, rarely begins in a crowd, but often begins and we make a decision that we have looked at ourselves and we decide we want to change. What are you saying, Pastor? I'm saying the reconciliation that we desire, the reconciliation that we feel we ought to experience, that reconciliation can only come first from the inside out. What does that mean for us? It means that all of us have to do some soul searching. All of us have to look within our own selves. All of us have to do some hard work. All of us have to make a decision that we want to be whole. And once we make that decision, it's far easier to take steps, even if they're baby steps, towards folk that we may not feel want to even be around us. What's amazing about this story is that when this brother came to himself and he began to move back towards home, home as metaphor for a place of belonging, as he began to move towards that place, he noticed the parent was already coming towards him. The reconciliation started when he came to himself. But while he was coming to himself, the parent was waiting, as it were, on the front porch, looking far into the landscape of the future, believing that one day reconciliation will occur. So many of us have been wounded. So many of us have been wounded by family. have been wounded by religious organizations, have been wounded in some ways by those we thought loved us the most. Many of us are still carrying around bruises, scars, marks of the pain we've had to live through just to affirm who we are. Many of us can witness the loneliness, the dark nights of the soul we had to go through. Many of us can testify, trying to find love in all the wrong places and with all the wrong faces. Many of us can testify that there were times, days, seasons, and periods where literally we almost threw in the towel because the pain of living had become almost unbearable. But here is the reality. Somewhere in all of that, we came to ourselves. We made a decision that we matter. And it doesn't really matter who doesn't care. We come to a place where we affirm we matter. We matter to God. We matter to this world. We matter to ourselves. Goal was the looking for approval. No. Now, there is a sense that we know who we are. We know whose we are. There is a coming to self that facilitates the movement towards reconciliation. Yeah, there's some folk that may not change, but when you come to yourself, that's not your primary concern. Yeah, there are some folk that you can talk to for decades who would never affirm our worth or our dignity, but that really doesn't matter. What matters more than their affirmation, what matters more than their words to say, we value you, what matters more than that is to come to a place where after wallowing in the pig pen, we say to ourselves, we matter. That's coming to ourselves. I hope somebody who hears this will take some time, even in the moment you're in. It may not be the best moment. It may not be the place you want to be. But right there, make a decision. Come to yourself. You're more than what folks say about you. We are more than the negative words that come our way. Come to yourself. And by coming to yourself, you lay the groundwork for reconciliation that we all desire. There is a movie that I love. It's called A Trip to Bountiful. In that movie, at the very end, we're given this song, a song that many who perhaps have Southern Baptist upbringings would know, sung by a voice that is so soothing. The song simply says, the hymn, come home, come home, you who are weary, come home. Earnestly tenderly, Jesus is calling for you and for me. That is an invitation for spiritual reconciliation that makes all the difference. I pray God's blessing upon your life and upon your journey. Thanks again for this opportunity, and thanks for the time you've given me. God bless. Take care.
Hallelujah. Come on, let's bless the Lord. This is the day that the Lord has made, so we will rejoice and be glad in it. How many know that his love is surrounding us all around? We have his love surrounding. Hallelujah. Come on, let's make some noise for him. All around, everywhere I look at love is all around. Say all around, everywhere I look at love is all around. Help me sing now. All around now. Everywhere I look at love. Say all around. Everywhere I look at love. Say all around. Everywhere I look at love. All around. Everywhere I look at love. Come on, let's bless the Lord. Yeah. Come on, put those hands together. Because he's worthy. He woke us up this morning. He's deserving of all the praise. Say, let the nation sing. Let the people shout. Hey. Oh, let your kingdom come. Pour your spirit out. Oh, Lord, we need you to manifest yourself. Manifest your love. Oh, just manifest, Lord. Manifest your love. Yes, all around. Everywhere I look, everywhere I look, hey, come on, bless them. Let the nation sing, let the people shout. Come on, let your kingdom come, Lord. Pour your spirit out. Hey, Lord, we need you to manifest. Oh, Lord, just manifest to me, Lord. Manifest your love. All around, everywhere I look.
Hello and happy Pride. John Cleghorn here at Caldwell Presbyterian Church. We rejoice that it's time again to celebrate how God is bending the arc of the moral universe towards justice and inclusion and love. We're sorry we can't be together, but we celebrate this 11th year in which we look to the divine first as we begin the weeks of celebration to come. Happy Pride, everybody, from Caldwell Presbyterian Church.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bellis, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I'm the pastor of Inclusion Community, where we believe all people hold sacred worth, and we celebrate the LGBTQ community as beloved and beautiful. Welcome to this sacred space today.
Hello, I'm Reverend Deborah J. Hopkins, the pastor of Essentials for Life Ministries, an online ministry here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am also the executive director of There's Still Hope, providing shelter, emergency shelter for our transgender adult community who unfortunately have found themselves homeless. I also go by the pronouns of she, her, and hers. Listen, I am so excited and honored to welcome all of you into this affirming space where we can celebrate life, celebrate the beauty of each other, and great love, because we know that the Creator has embodied all of us with that energy of love and power and strength to make a difference in our communities. So I want to let you know that when we go to the voting booths, when we're out marching, to remember that transgender lives also matter.
خسر يبانه يا لا 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 يا لا 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 أولم خسر يبانه يا لا 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 يا لا 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 أولم خسر يبانه يا لا لا from love, yeah, la, 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 and you must build this world from love, yeah, la, 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 and if we build this world from love, yeah, la, 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 yeah, la, la, la. خسر يبانه يا لا 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 يا لا 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 عالم خسر يبانه يا لا 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 يا لا لا لا.
Good afternoon. I want to teach you a Hebrew word, and the word is teshuvah. The word teshuvah can mean many different things. Its root in Hebrew is lashuv, which means to turn, or perhaps to return. Teshuvah may be described as returning to the land of our soul, returning to who we are, returning to what we are, returning to where we are, born and reborn again. Teshuvah is about renewal. And teshuvah is about understanding that while we may have wronged someone that we love, we may have not lived up to the best that we can be, we may not have supported our loved ones like we could have, we may have not supported the LGBTQ community like we should have. We may have even hurt others or ourselves. And that while all of these may be true, teshuvah is the idea that we can yet have hope. We can have a sense of optimism to imagine a different future and to fundamentally change and renew our lives for the better. To be born and reborn again. And that work, whether it's called teshuvah or reconciliation, begins with each one of us. We are all responsible for the ways that we have acted and the ways that we can act. We are all responsible. So to engage in the work of teshuvah and reconciliation, we open ourselves to the reality of our lives. We must be willing to face ourselves, our souls, and our actions. And this isn't easy. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who lived in the late 18th century, encouraged his followers to take time each and every day to be unavailable for business or family duties or even small talk. And he encouraged people to go out into a room or into a meadow and to take the time for silent introspection of our regrets and our yearnings. And he urged his students to be honest and to confront the reality of their lives. But this isn't easy to do, especially today with the din of television and ringing cell phones and email notification and tweets and Zoom and Zoom and Zoom. We simply cannot be introspective while we're tuned into everything else but ourselves in a COVID world. The true introspection requires us to say to ourselves that we are here for ourselves. I am here for myself. You are here for yourself. To take daily quiet time for probing questions while the storms of our life rage. So say with me, I am here for myself, to understand, to reflect, to account, and to be honest with the reality of my life. Self-honesty and realism are important steps towards teshuva, towards reconciliation. The challenge, of course, is to not become paralyzed by the truths, to not be held back or overwhelmed by what we see when we examine the reality of our lives. Too much realism may ruin our ability to have faith that we can change at all. Reality without hope can cause irreversible pain. This is why our faith traditions consistently emphasize the importance of hope, that there is a better future ahead, the possibility of change, the confidence of opportunity of a bright future is possible. No matter what fires or what pain that we have caused or are living through right now, we have the capacity, the agency, with the support and help of God and each other to change and to have hope in the future. This is the hope that encouraged the ancient Israelites to journey from slavery in Egypt towards freedom in the Promised Land. It's the assurance that even though we have made mistakes, that we have hurt people, that we love, we can, all of us, yet change. It's the hopefulness that reminds us that we can all become better people. We can return to the land of our souls. But hope, too, has its limits. Too much optimism, perhaps, is even more dangerous than dysfunction, pain, and paralysis caused by hyper-reality. An overdeveloped notion of optimism is naive and Pollyannish. It's shallow. It assumes that no matter what we do, the future will be better, that it's possible to change on a dime, that our apologies will certainly be accepted by those that we have hurt, that the dynamics that are at the root of our failures, and consequently our souls, are simple and easy to change. Too much optimism could make us think that the process of teshuva, of reconciliation, isn't hard and that we can achieve reconciliation quickly. But it's not possible. It takes time. In the early 1960s, there was a scientist, a graduate student by the name of Donald Curry. And he had a fellowship from the National Science Foundation to study climate change in the 1960s. And to do this, he took core samples from very old trees. He would look at the rings of the tree and the natural recorded history of that tree and determine what kind of environment the tree had lived through. And one day, while talking to some colleagues, he learned that there was a group of trees that were considered very old and had possibly lived through the last ice age. So using the best scientific methods of the time, he hiked into the forest and he found a tree that looked particularly old. And he began taking core samples. And he drilled into the tree. And his drill bit got caught and broke off in the tree. And he tried again with a longer drill bit. But again, the drill broke off and got caught again in the trunk of a tree. And again he tried, and yet another broke off. And again he tried, and yet another broke off. Over and over again. Finally, he had 4 or 5 drill bits broken off in the tree, and he needed these instruments to conduct further research. And so, with the permission of the United States Forest Service, Curry cut down the tree and retrieved his drill bits. And after he cut the tree down, he began counting the rings of the tree. And he counted, and he counted, and he counted. And Curry became distressed by the reality of what was facing him. He counted, and he started to cry. And then he asked the colleague to double check. And she counted and counted and counted. And she gasped. The rings of the tree don't lie. Curry cut down a tree that was 4,862 years old, the oldest living organism on Earth. Imagine being faced with the reality of what Curry had done. That in the name of discovery, in the name of science, of finding out truths about our planet, he'd single-handedly killed an organism that had survived more than any of us could ever know. Curry went on to greatly add to the scientific understanding of our natural world. But he also faced head-on the tension that we all face, to realistically and honestly recognize what we have done. To not let that picture that develops overwhelm us, diminish our hope, or dim the prospect and possibility of the future. To keep our optimism in check. And to be mature enough to understand that the journey of teshuvah, of reconciliation, is a slow, a long, and a thoughtful process. As long and as old as the rings of the tree. We are all constantly growing. We are Htbe, trees of life. We are living with the tensions that we are not perfect. With hope, we can change. The lived experience we've had can shape us. They do not define our path forward. And that the journey of teshuvah, of reconciliation, is one with many mountains and valleys and twists and turns. But it begins with each one of us saying that we are responsible. We will survive. But how we survive, the health of our souls, is up to us. There's no better time to begin our journey than right now, counting the rings of our lives, knowing the truths that we face in our world, and living with the constant tension between the biting reality and the light of hope. Thank you.
A blessing for reconciliation. May your life's journey be woven with dreams, and may you discern your mission to make life better, as Joseph did. May you live in full acceptance of who you are. May any harm you have done intentionally or not be put to rest by forgiving yourself and those who love you. May you feel humility and awareness that the love that we hold in our hearts is not our possession and is not for us to reward or withhold. Weep aloud, cleanse and forgive yourself. May you recognize your life's experiences as the source of your own heart of compassion.
Hey friends, I'm James Howell. I'm one of the pastors at Myers Park United Methodist Church. And somebody said to me the other day, pride isn't happening. Pride is happening. It's happening in this way. It's a movement that can't be stopped. And we are proud. That's not the right word. We are humbled. We are grateful to be part of it, to stand with you, that we are a church where everyone is welcome, where everyone is precious to God, where God's blessings are extended to all people.
Bright blessings. I'm the Reverend Wes Isley, he, him, and his, and I bring you wishes for a fabulous Pride from the local pagan spiritual community, where we celebrate that all acts of love and pleasure are sacred to the goddess. Be well.
I'm Dusty Class. I'm one of the rabbis at Temple Bethel, where we are proud to say that love is love and all are welcome.
I am the Reverend Marion Spratt Goldson, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Associate Rector of St. Martin's Episcopal Church on East 7th Street here in Charlotte. And at St. Martin's, we believe that all of God's children are beloved and made in the image of God. And as beloved children of God, we strive for justice and peace and respect the dignity of every human being. I'm honored to welcome you into this safe and holy space as we celebrate together. Happy Pride, y'all.
Hi, welcome to Charlotte Buddhist Vihara. Namo tassam bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa buddhaṃ dhammaṃ saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Here we do blessing chanting, and we do homage to the Buddha. We do also meditations. We teach meditation, and here also we teach the truth, the Dhamma, as explained by the Buddha. And this is a Theravada Buddhist little tiny monastery, and you are welcome. I'd like to invite you to sit, get into a comfortable posture for a meditation. And we'll just sit a very short time. It's just a quick intro into what it's like when you visit the Charlotte Buddhist Vihara. Feel how your body is meeting the earth, whether you're sitting on a chair, sofa, floor, whatever it is that's beneath you right now, that is the earth for you right now. So feel what that is like. See if you can notice your entire body all at once. Look to see whether this body is breathing. Is breathing happening? In my school of Buddhism, normally we close our eyes, but we're not particular about it. You have to close your eyes when there's kitty photo bombing going on. Look for differences between in-breathing, out-breathing, pausing. There's a lot going on here. Has your mind wandered already? Very normal. Don't worry about it. Just go back right on track by being more interested in what we're doing. Or if you really got lost in the entire trains of thought, imagery, whatever, then it's a good idea to call it out. Note thinking. Thinking. Silently in your mind. Note it, because that's what's really happening. And by noting it, you come back to the present moment, out of fantasies of past, future, and whatever. Right here in the present moment, it's pretty sweet. Nothing to worry about. No identities to try to live up to. Just sit. Just notice breathing. Whenever the mind wanders, you can do that bit about the noting that there's thinking. Every time you do that, congratulate yourself very strongly. It's a wonderful thing to do. It's an important mental training that will serve you well in and out of sitting meditation. I'm afraid that's really all that we have time to go over together today. But you're welcome to join our online meditation sessions and classes several times a week. Go to our website, www.charlottebuddhistvihara.org, to see the schedule on our link to our meetup RSVP site. So may you be well, happy, and peaceful. May only goodness come to you. May every breath be peaceful. Namo tassam bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa buddham dhamman sangham saranam gacchami. So I must preface my comments on reconciliation by saying that whatever you need to do to stand up for your rights, I want you to do. But I want you to do it from a particular vantage point, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. So please do not interpret anything that I'm saying as saying to give up the fight, give up your rights, give up the space that you need to be. You need space. You might need a lot of it, and it's okay to take it up. But let's figure out how we want to do that in a way that is spiritually beautiful. So the title of the topic is Reconciliation Involves Spiritual Evolution. And here's why. Somebody has to make the first move. Someone has to make the first move of the gesture of stepping forward with reconciliation. And how is that going to happen when there's war in everyone's hearts? So somebody has to come forward with peace in their hearts. They have to be the grown-up in the picture. And there's the possibility that that could be you. We need to come at others, come to others with a heart of love. Okay, well, how are we going to get that? They're stepping on our toes. They're hurting us. How is that going to happen? Whether we're talking about family or officials or mass movements of people, love is going to smooth the way better than any strategy, any particular strategy ever could. The Buddha was called the King of Peace. It was one of his nicknames, the King of Peace. And we're talking both inner peace and outer peace. Outer peace starts with inner peace. So the way we're going to bring love to any situation is by inculcating it in ourselves. That's not going to be easy. If your whole world has told you to hate you, how are you going to do that? Didn't say it's going to be easy, but I am saying it's going to be the most worthwhile thing you'll ever do, is to come to love you. Yes, that's what I said, come to love you. The Buddha said that hatred never overcomes hatred. Hatred is overcome by non-hatred alone. It doesn't sound very nice in English, so we might say more affirmatively, hatred is overcome by loving kindness alone. This is a law eternal, he said. It's true inside of you as well. So how are you going to make peace inside so that you can bring peace to outer situations? It's a journey. It's work. And particularly if there are aspects of your identity, how you present in the world, how your body is, that people have told you to not love, to hate. Sometimes people are so wounded that they hate the part of themselves or the aspect of themselves that seemed to draw problems to them, pain to them, like a lightning rod. You see the futility of that, right? Because hatred is never overcome by hatred, it's overcome by loving kindness alone. This is true among countries, it's true here. You cannot take some aspect of you and try to hold it away from you and hate on it. It doesn't work. There's just more and more hate and more pain. And if there's anything the Buddha was trying to do in this world, is to ease pain. Bring pain to an end. Bring comfort and solace. How are we going to do that? Meditation helps, if you're ready for it. I think what you actually are going to have to do, if this is a problem for you, if self-love doesn't just rise right up in abundance and radiant inside, there's work to do. It's a step-by-step thing. It's a gradual process. And the Buddha gave us some instructions. Specifically, it's found in step 6 of the Lord Buddha's Eightfold Path. He taught us a path of how to live that brings a whole better way of being and eventually even enlightenment. Step 6 is called right effort. It's the effort to shift the mind out of unwholesome states into wholesome states. Train the mind out of unwholesome states. And it comes in 4 parts. Preventing unwholesome states, overcoming unwholesome states, developing wholesome states, and making wholesome states a moment-to-moment habit. We have a kitty photo bomb going on here. Excuse me, say hello to Kitty. Hey, Kitty. Oh, no. I don't want to. Unwholesome states: rage, hate, cruelty, dishonesty, fear, worry, anxiety. Everything that you don't want to feel, that's going to be in an unwholesome state pretty much. Wholesome states: peace, patience, love, kindness, bliss, mindfulness, non-agitation, non-jealousy, loving kindness, empathy, compassion, charity. Every beautiful state that you ever want to have, it's going to be in the wholesome side. So we need to learn to identify. It's kind of easy to identify the negative states. Some negative states are kind of sweet at the beginning, but they have bitterness at the end. That can include lust. It can include sometimes ill will, feels good for a moment. Rage, righteous anger, ooh, it feels good. It's not good. So we need to become very clear, sharp, and alert. What is my mind doing now? What is my mind getting into now? We need to study ourselves, moment to moment, day by day, week by week, We study ourselves. What do I need to prevent? What do I need to do to prevent unwholesome states? Prevention can be as easy as don't have an important conversation until you've had your coffee. That could be prevention. Prevention could be not to get into gossiping about a certain person that you have a lot of negative feelings about. So don't go there. Don't get into it. Prevention could be that the alcoholic needs to stay away from the bar until they're, in a stable state. Prevention could be having good timing and when you start a conversation, so to help make sure it doesn't go downhill. There's so many ways to prevent. Prevention too could be like you're a jealous type and you see your loved one's phone and you're unlocked and you're tempted to go snooping and sneaking, but you're the jealous type, and so you pass up the temptation. That would be a prevention. Every way you can imagine prevention might be part of your spiritual toolbox of what you need to bring up to help yourself avoid unwholesome states. Sometimes we fall into unwholesome states despite our best efforts, and so then we need to have a skill set for getting out of them. You need to watch yourself and see what helps me get out of my anger, what helps me get out of my despair, what helps me get out of my grief, what helps me get out of my worry. Maybe go watch Oprah for a while. That might help. If you're about to murder your neighbor, go read Stephen King. It's better than that. There's always something that's a little step better than what you're tempted to do. Go do something a little better. And we need to especially know what our own weaknesses really are. If you're the hating type, be very careful about that. If you're the jealous warrior, the type that worries, you're the type that gets into fights, or the type that tends to cringe and run away, what's your unwholesome problem? What is it? And know it. And be really, really quick to attend to it. And if you ever have success, you've sometimes had success, dealing with your unwholesome states. Whatever success you have encountered, remember it, bring it up and say, okay, that's what I'm going to do. When this or that happens, I'll go to that. And I'll do that. And that will help. Take a walk, count to 10, call a friend, read a religious material, go do some art. Whatever it is that works for you to get you out of it, do that. Sometimes, if your unwholesome state is, say, anger, then maybe a cupcake would help. If your unwholesome state is, disordered eating, cupcake wouldn't be a good idea. We're all different. And there are wholesome states. We don't stay in the middle between unwholesome and wholesome states. Unless we're fully enlightened, we're not going to stay in the middle. We have to get into wholesome states, protect our minds from the unwholesome states. Peace, patience, love, kindness, compassion, anything. All it takes is one wholesome state, and in that instant, you're protected from any unwholesome state. So find one. Find what wholesome state is easy at hand for you. Weaponize it against your unwholesome states. Maybe compassion is easy for you. Bring it up. Maybe equanimity. Just say, oh, it's not worth it. I saw a talk. I watched a talk this past week that had been by Representative John Lewis, who we just lost this past week. And I believe he was quoting Martin Luther King. When he said that hate is too heavy a burden to bear. For some people, that equanimity of just saying, not worth it, I can let it go. Some people can do that. I can't do that, but some people can. So go to that if that works for you. Whatever is strong in you, loving kindness, gladness at whatever's good in other people's lives, whatever lifts you onto your feet, use that. Use that to get you out of some unwholesome state. Take note of it. Make a skill of it. And use your your wholesome states more and more to where you just don't even, where you're staying in wholesome states. So this is the maintain wholesome states to where they're your everyday habit. This is where we're getting into some real spiritual strength. Staying in these beautiful wholesome states, peace, patience, love, etc. If you're in any one wholesome state, all the others are close by, close at hand. My teacher, Bhante Ji, was living in rural West Virginia. He established his monastery many years ago, just on the other side of a mountain from people who were doing snake handling form of Christianity. They wanted nothing to do with him. He was small, very dark skinned, wearing shaved head and robes. He would go for long walks, miles every day, and he had a habit of enthusiastically waving to people as they drove by. Well, in the countryside, people respect a wave, and they often will wave back. And over the years, over time, his friendly wave opened doors. People opened their hearts to him. He established a lot of friendships with people who normally would have had nothing to do with him. How did he do it? With love in his heart. So much love in his heart. Bit by bit, day by day, he kind of wore them down with his friendliness. He said there was one man who would drive by, nothing. And one day, after many, many waves, the man went one finger up. And my teacher said, the DJ said, another time the guy went by, he raised 2 fingers greeting. Eventually the guy finally was waving freely. They became friends. Sometimes it takes a lot of passion to break down walls, a lot of patience to break down walls, and a lot of patience with oneself. Bring to bear all of these suggestions to how you deal with yourself. First, bring a truce. Try to bring up love and kindness. See, the Buddha is quoted as saying that you could look around the whole world and never find anyone more worthy of your love than yourself. I hope you find this. With all this love in your heart, you can look out on the world, and some will love you and some will hate you. And if you can take the attitude like a great-grandmother, looking at children misbehaving, they're like that. It's okay. People are just bad. That's how they are. It's what they're like, and it's okay. You can love them anyway. I hope you can do this, because it's a beautiful way to live, to love anyway, to love no matter what. You know how strong you are when you can love no matter what? And when you can love you no matter what? If you make that firm determination, I'm going to love me no matter what, nothing can break you and nothing can knock you down. I hope you find that, and I hope you bring it to all your interactions, to love other people no matter what. Here's my blessing for you. Bhavatu Samba Mangalang Rakhandu Samba Devata Samba Buddhanupavena Samba Dhammanupavena Samba Sanghanupavena Sada Sattipahandrite. May you have every good blessing. May the angels protect you by the power of all wisdom, by the power of all truth, the Dhamma, by the power of all the saints, the Sangha. May you ever be well. Sadhu. Sadhu. Blessings to you.
Hello, my name is Jolynn McElroy, pastor at First Christian Church in the Dilworth neighborhood of Charlotte. And we believe, whoever you are, wherever you've been, God loves you.
Hello, beautiful and beloved ones. My name is Kelly McCrell. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve as the Connect Family and Outreach Minister at First United Methodist Church here in Charlotte. And when I think about all the people who will be tuning into today's service, I can't help but be blown away by the creativity of the divine. So thank you for being here, and happy Pride.
What's happening, Charlotte family? This is Bishop Tanya Rawls. I am founder and executive director of the Freedom Center for Social Justice and pastor of Sacred Souls United Church of Christ. What I know is all of us are sacred. You are beautiful, amazing, and welcome to today's service. God bless you and yours.
Greetings, everybody. My name is the Reverend Andrew Shipley of Mission Gathering Christian Church Disciples of Christ here in Charlotte. And I just want to say to everyone watching this virtual Pride Interfaith service that God takes pride in you, regardless of your expression of sexuality, gender, or however God has uniquely made you. God takes pride in you. And thank you for letting us be a part of this.
I want to invite you right now to join me in a collective endeavor that we call worship. Won't you join me and just bless God with the fruit of your lips, which is your words of worship. God, we worship you. And if you know this song, I invite you to join me. Hallelujah to your name, God. Come, let us worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Come, let us worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Give God the honor. Give God the praise. Come, let us worship the Lord. Let's give God the praise. Come, let us worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Come, let us worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Give God the honor. Give God the praise. Come, let us worship the Lord. Let's give God the praise. Worship God. Worship God. Give my God the glory. Give my God the praise. Worship God. Worship God. Come, let us worship the Lord. Let's give God the praise. Worship God. Worship God. Give my God the glory. Give my God the praise. Worship God. Worship God. Come, let us worship the Lord. Come, let us worship the Lord. Come, let us worship the Lord. Let's give God the praise.
Greetings. Bishop Tanya Rawls here, pastor of Sacred Souls United Church of Christ, and so happy to be here with you today. I have the honor of being able to share on this topic around evolution. And in opening this conversation, I would like to go from Romans, the 5th chapter. And I'm going to start at the first verse here. And Romans 5:1 says, "Now that we have been put right with God through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. He has brought us by faith into this experience of God's grace in which we now live. And so we boast of the hope we have of sharing God's glory. We also boast of our troubles, because we know that trouble produces endurance, Endurance brings God's approval, and his approval creates hope. This hope does not disappoint us, for God has poured out God's love into our hearts by means of the Holy Spirit, who is God's gift to us. And for these next moments, as a thought, I want to share the evolution of a nation. A few years ago, I purchased a special edition of Time magazine, and it was simply titled 1968. And the subtitle was The Year That Shaped a Generation. 1968, as some may know, and some of you may remember, was a year that was filled with things like psychedelic drugs, lots of plastic boots, plastic skirts, wild art like the art produced by Andy Warhol and Peter Max. It was also filled with the music of the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix, the Rolling Stones, and this powerful newcomer called Aretha Franklin. We also began in '68 to address issues like interracial and intergenerational relationships. And this was manifested in movies. Oftentimes, art precedes us, right, in terms of being able to establish norms. And there were these two movies in particular. One was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier and Katharine Hepburn. And the second one was the movie The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft. And these two films placed actually number 2 and number 1, respectively, in the most watched movies that year. One movie, of course, dealing with a Black man falling in love with a white woman and her in love with him and her bringing him home to dinner. And the second one with this intergenerational relationship, and one today might have called her a cougar. But what did it mean when we talked about women actually being the ones going for the younger person? Normally, this was something that you would typically see with men. So it was dealing with a lot of issues around like women and our sexuality, and then issues, of course, of gender were very relevant during that time. And what could we as women do? It seems strange now when we talk about these kind of things, because that seems so far-fetched that we would even question whether or not we could have interracial relationships when we see so many biracial children. It seems strange that we would have conversations around an older woman with a younger man. And we have definitely many examples, increasing examples, of where we see this age gap and the understanding that our bodies, that sexuality, that those things aren't anchored to an age. It has to do with much broader conversations. What an exciting time. But in addition to art and music and culture, 1968 was also a year that was filled with great uncertainty, violence, and questioning about everything, or at the very least, so many of the fundamental things that we believed to be true and held as valuable in America. One of the things we faced in that year was the assassinations of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the then Attorney General, Robert Kennedy. And also we were having to deal with this war in Vietnam and the struggles and challenges that we faced as a young nation, fighting basically against impoverished people of color. We also had a rise in the Black Power movement. It was a time when there was great pride for Black folk who, up to that point, had been marginalized and relegated to the lower strata of American society, to be able to say, no, we are not the bottom. We came to this country as kings and queens and princes and princesses. You stole us from a country that was rich and prosperous, America, and brought us here to build your nation. Well, those bodies, those Black bodies rose up and said, we now will reclaim our power, reclaim our positions as royalty. And what a shift that created in America when her former slaves and the descendants of those former slaves dared to say that they too were powerful. In addition to what was happening in and with mainline America, there was also a movement growing within the LGBTQ community, one that would culminate the following year in 1969 in a riot in the Village section of New York City, a small bar called the Stonewall Inn. That effort was led by a group of courageous transgender women of color who resisted the police brutality and injustices that were being waged against those who frequented not only that bar, but other spaces where LGBTQ people gathered. They said enough, not just for them, but for us all. America in 1968 was forced to evolve or die. She had to find ways to understand and live with the very hard realities of her white supremacist foundation and her hope to truly be an America that was welcoming, safe, and yes, free for all. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? While we made some advances through the courageous work of people who literally laid down their lives for our freedom, we never completely got there in 1968. And now, as we see America in the throes of a health pandemic, political crisis where our very democracy is under attack, and a social upheaval similar to the turmoil of the 1960s, we are living in and experiencing the evolutionary process as it continues in this nation. In 2020, we are facing yet another great pull at the threads of our white supremacist foundations, and we have an opportunity to weave a new tapestry, one that includes the cultures, races, religions, sexual orientations, gender expressions, and lives that now make up our nation. In our opening text that I read, the Apostle Paul was trying to encourage the young church in Rome about the opportunities that they had through God's grace and the power of God's Holy Spirit to build something amazing. This thing that we now call the Christian church. But at that time, they were having to build and evolve in an environment that pushed against so much of what they believed and who they were becoming. I want to suggest that we're in a similar moment in time where we are called to question, called to push back against, called to even question our own long-held beliefs about justice, about equality, about equity, about rightness. Now, as we are in this moment, what we see is a world in which love is demanding that we see the prisoner as sacred as the priest, where we see the sex worker as sacred as the young virgin who is stepping into life for the very first time. This text dealt with the notion of reconciliation as the end of estrangement between humanity and God, but does not this moment in which we live, in similar ways, call for another form of reconciliation, one still driven by love, but one that is demanding truth first and foremost, for one cannot have true reconciliation without first having truth spoken about the very real wrongs done most frequently to the most marginalized. So we first got to tell the truth. Tell the truth about what we experience within our own LGBT community. Truth about the experiences of how well or not we look at issues beyond just sexual orientation and gender identity. Are we concerned about homelessness? Are we concerned about poverty? Are we concerned about police overreach? Are we concerned about the democracy of America? Yes, we can be queer and we can be allies and we can be all these things and also care as Christian texts challenge those of us who follow that path. It challenges us to not see Greek nor Jew, to not see black nor white, to not see young nor old, but to see every human form, all of our siblings, as sacred. And that as sacred beings, that we are then called to help ensure that those sacred lives are cared for. One of the things we see when you look at the word reconciliation, it is a fascinating word because it is translated differently in what the Christian Bible considers the Old Testament and our New Testament. In the Old Testament, which is Hebrew, this word reconciliation actually means peace. In our Greek, it is a coming together. It is a reconciling. It is a making right of something that has been skewed wrong. So when we look at those things coming together, I am seeing evolution as a way of us righting wrongs in the envelope of peace. And the ways that with that new life, that new love, all kind of possibilities are available to us all. America indeed is in the throes of an evolutionary phase. This can be likened to childbirth, which if you've ever seen a video of childbirth or if you have birthed a child, what you know is you are not going to have birth without blood, without discomfort, and without an interesting kind of concern about what is possible next. For you see, in the midst of the childbirthing process, we cannot say exactly what every moment is going to be, what every moment is going to provide. What one has to be able to do is ride through that process, that life-giving process, and trust it. Similarly, we are at a time where I believe we must trust in a like manner. Trust life, trust love, trust one another in bold, brave new ways. I understand that actually we do not necessarily all agree on every point, but there are some basic things that we actually can and should be able to agree upon. And that is that every person is entitled to a life free from the fear of oppression. Everyone should be entitled to a life where what they know is that who they are and how they define themselves should be valued and validated, and not just by the most small margin, but by us all. That evolution must look like us being able to see bigger than those who look like, talk like, and live like us. That we're in a season now where we must understand that the world is bigger than whatever we understood it to be yesterday, and that we have absolutely no idea what the tomorrows will be. But what we do know and do have control over is what we do and how we live today. For you see, we're able to see farther because we are now standing on the shoulders of people like Marsha P. Johnson, and people like Elijah Cummings, and people like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and so many others who have done incredible work that our nation might be made great. We're standing on the shoulders of those who established organizations that we consider mainstays now, but who were birthed through pain and suffering and struggle, with the hope, I am sure, that the legacy they left behind we would carry forward with similar courage and boldness. We are evolving, and you've got two basic choices in times like this. You will either believe that greater is possible and move with other like-minded people that don't look like, live like, or sound like you, or you will play a role that helps to continue and perpetuate the status quo, which is framed in a way that fundamentally will always exclude the margins, will never see true value in those who come in different ways into your path, across your path, or walk with you. What I know is that today, great things are possible. As much as the pain of the loss and the sickness that is present in our world and in America today, also incredible doors of opportunity are available. Ones where we can come together and think about bold new ideas, powered by the Spirit of God and love, to frame what hopefully will ultimately become that good and perfect union that the framers of our Constitution hoped for. That will someday be that world that some small, young, gay boy, lesbian girl, intersex person prayed for late at night after having so many others say that they could not exist or definitely could not live authentically. It's a new day. And I want to say that this is a day that is not going to be a day filled with may I's. For there are so many of us that have become weary of the asking, and now will walk in the fullness and power that is ours as sacred beings, born from a parent who loved us and loves us all equally. No one is greater or lesser than another, and love has deemed that so. I'm working in closing with a team that is thinking about what is possible now for LGBTQ plus people and our allies who are no longer asking permission to move forward with this bold new future, but will say, we're moving along and do you want to come with us? I believe that there are many who will watch this who want to be a part of that. And I want to encourage you, in addition to the things you will do with other organizations and in the world and in your life and around kitchen tables and when things open up again at restaurants and bars. But in this moment, we will all ask ourselves the question simply, what is uniquely mine to do? And I want to say to those who are people of faith, the question I have for you is singular as well, and that is, do you believe? Do you believe the promises of whatever your traditions are? And if you do believe those promises, then does that now mean that together we really can build a great world? If you're interested in that, please send the words big ideas to info@fcsj.org. Big ideas in the subject line to info@fcsj.org. And we will be sure that you're aware of the conversations as they evolve. Now, in closing, I want to encourage you by saying to you, God did not make a mistake when creating you or any of us just as we are. We are all sacred in God's eyes and beautiful creations. Now unto God as we close out, who is able to keep you from falling, to that God who will present you faultless, to that God who has given us the power to grow and to move and to dream and to think and then to execute, to that God of love who we know by many names and many more experiences, to that God, be honor, glory, dominion, and power both now and forevermore. Go in peace knowing how incredibly loved you are, and that this revolution will be televised, and in the midst of it, we shall evolve. Amen. God bless you. I encourage you to enjoy the rest of your day and know that I hope and wish the best for you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to Bethany and Liz of Language Line Solutions for providing ASL interpretation. We hope that something one of our honored speakers shared today has blessed or even challenged you. Be blessed and have a great week.